So we're kind of putting together fundamental checklists. So this is a really simple concept of what we're going through. We're just trying to think of all the main things that Overwatch players encounter, and just like start to ingrain like a visual checklist of the things that you can see, so that as you're playing the game, you can always start thinking about this and referring back to it, and eventually it should just become autonomous, where like you just know what you're doing. You know where you are in the steps. You know what, if you need to start back at step 1 or step 4. So then you can kind of understand your role. It helps you understand how to utilize the hero that you're at versus what you should be doing as a team entity. So the first fundamental checklist that we're going to go over is going to be like universal comp steps. So this is just something that you can apply, just a general concept that you can apply to any comp. But you can just like dive has these aspects, goats has these aspects. Any type of comp, there's still the same foundational aspects of what you're generally doing. All that differs is how that comp will accomplish those different steps. So just kind of breaking it down, some of the universal steps are, first there's a staging. Second, there's an initiation step. Third, there's a focus fire step. So notice that it's really important that there's a specific target portion of that. And then there's a reset phase. And I think that that's something that we really need to start thinking about and realize that it's there, and it's not something that we have been really doing typically. So first off, staging. This is something we've been working on. We're doing this great. However, we're kind of having an issue escalating to the next step. So I think that's because a lot of people don't quite know what it is we need to be doing. So we're going to break it down. So when we're staging, DPS and tanks, you need to be in position to dive the selected target with 1 mobility cooldown. So it doesn't mean that we have to be running dive per se. We could be running goats. We can be running whatever. We could be running 222. All that matters is that we're getting in position. Like even 222, that's more of a poke, and you just kind of take advantages as they come. But you still can have coordinated team movement and attacks. So again, to properly stage, the DPS and the tanks are going to be in position to dive the selected target with 1 mobility cooldown. So we're specifying exactly what it means to be properly staged. So you have to factor the specific dive target will be selected dependent upon the enemy team comp by our designated shot caller. So for instance, just for simplification, when we're in dive, we're going to do our best to have sensor be the shot caller. And that's dictated by looking at the enemy team, looking at your target prioritization, and determining who is the best target to dive. Usually it's a McCree. It's somebody with low mobility and low defensive capability. Usually a McCree, a Zen, etc. You can figure that out based on the comp. Also, the map will dictate your dive. Some maps, there may be a McCree or there may be a Zen. However, they have optimal positioning, and you just can't get to them. You can't dive them. For example, Busan, the downtown map, the Widow map, there's absolutely nowhere that you can stage a dive to get to a Widow, an enemy Widow in the standard Widow location, without really exposing yourself to get in position for that dive. So again, endpoint, map dictates as well as the enemy comp. Goats, primarily, we're going to designate myself just because I usually am in the back line. I can see the entire play field, and I can look at the comp and dictate who I would attack. So again, we talked about that. Staging locations are dictated by the target selected in map. So it's really important. Remember, to be properly and appropriately staged, none of your abilities should be on cooldown. All of your health should be topped off, and you shouldn't be in LOS of the enemy. And the whole point of this is to prevent receiving poke damage, as well as telegraphing what you're about to do. Perfect example in Numbani, I was showing you a good staging point, and the purpose of that is if you get over in the corner enough, you're out of line of sight of most locations, and you're not going to be receiving poke damage. Most important of all on this entire slide, staging needs to progress to the next step as quickly as possible. Because if you don't, you're going to be taking poke damage. Somebody's going to have to use a cooldown to stay alive, etc., etc. So we need to work on that, getting a little bit more efficient. Okay. Initiation. This is the next step. We really didn't get into that, but it's really going to help us to actually have some commands that we utilize and things that we start to have as a universal word, so that it becomes like clockwork. So what I've done is kind of just initiate or add in like a preparatory command and a command of execution. The preparatory command is going to be set, And that pretty much lets you know, hey, I'm requesting information from you guys, and I want to know, are we in position? Are we ready to do this dive? And then it's going to be a go, and that's where you're going to go ahead and aggressively make that move. So essentially, whoever the designated initiator is, dependent upon the map, they're going to ask set. Silence indicates that you're set. The reason for that is it's really muddy if everybody says set. It's going to be a lot of information overload, and if there's a no in there, you're not going to be able to hear it. So silence indicates that you're set. The only vocalized response should be no, and no would be due to the fact that you don't have any cooldowns, you're taking poke damage, you need a top off, whatever it may be, right? So then after a quick set, you're going to wait like a second. If you don't hear shit, it's go. And this should be an explosive action. It needs to be a highly aggressive, rapid, and synchronized team action. Everybody should be moving their asses at a high rate of speed towards that designated target to kill them. Appropriate heroes would then utilize their abilities to facilitate that dive. So like Lucio's speed boost, part of Lucio's responsibility there is you've got to make sure that you have amp the beat and you have speed boost, because right on go, I would expect that you're amping it right there, and it should be an aggressive move towards that target. Maywall can set up this dive. It's not just something for goats or dive comp or whatever. This applies in any of them. Okay. So then you escalate to the next step. Now you've initiated your dive. You're now on top of your target. Everybody's trying to kill this target. You need to focus fire on that specific target. The entire team should be entirely focused on them. The only relevant callouts during this period, and this is where things trump or change that. So these are the things you need to keep in mind. The only relevant callout change is if a different target suddenly becomes 1 HP, and we're classifying this as 2 bars or less. As an example, that's less than 50 health. That is a 1 HP callout, not to be confused with half. If someone's half, that's not necessarily relevant. 1 HP callouts for right now. Once we start to really master this, maybe then we can start talking about who's half, because then it'd be good feedback to say, okay, we know who's half, we know who's 1, as long as everybody's in agreement to go for the 1 HP first. But like I said, to simplify this, if anybody has to do a call out other than the name of the target during that dive, it's only going to be Genji 1 HP, Lucio 1 HP, etc. Everyone on the team, if there's a 1 HP target and it's not the specific target, you don't debate it, you don't question it, you stop what you're doing. I don't care how close. If you're half on a target and they're being peeled, or stop what you're doing immediately and go and peel and immediately transition to that 1 HP target. That 1 HP target has a higher probability of dying than whatever half target or 25% health target that you're working on. Yeah, I know 50 health is 25%, but if they're truly 1 HP, if they're truly 50 or less, it's likely that they're going to die first. Again, so going back, the only relevant callouts during this period are what we just discussed, as well as a request for peel. That would be from either your supports or maybe a non-mobile hero, and usually your peel heroes are going to be Diva, Zarya, Winston, McCree, Mei, things like that. There's more, but those are just examples. And then the only other call out is an enemy tell, or like where they're telegraphing what they're doing, where they show that it's kind of indicative of an impending ult. So people with game sense that have some time in here, you can usually tell when an ult is coming that is relevant. If you see the McCree on a high ground, just kind of camping it out, or a Genji dash in the air, that really doesn't give you much of a time notice, but it's still a good example. But I think another one that you start to feel out is an aggressive Rhine hopping towards you out of the blue. He might have shatter. So just things like that. Those are relevant callouts. But then go right back to the discipline of 1 HP callouts or the target only. No excessive comms discipline there. Or comms issues. You want to have comms discipline. So then at any time, if you're critical health, always consider transitioning to the next step, the reset phase. And I think the reset phase is going to be really informative for a lot of people here. Because this is something that I don't typically see until like mid-diamond, probably 3,400 and above, where you really start to see people appreciate the power of this. So this is something that I really am looking forward to working on with us once we get up to step 3, is working on our reset. There are different types of reset, and a lot of people don't realize this. So it doesn't have to be a full team reset. first and foremost, the one that I really like a lot is the individual reset. You can see it. It's very profound when I play on some of my great or on my main, like around 3.5, 3.6. You can really see the DPS that appreciate that. You'll see a Genji like just go is super aggressive, fighting it out, and then next thing you know, he's behind cover, standing perfectly still because his game sense allows him to know that he's perfectly safe, and he's calmly requesting for healing. It allows me not to miss a shot. He gets heals, and he's immediately back in the fight. So that's an individual reset. Take cover, communicate verbally. Don't just press X. Sometimes, hey, I need a heal when you get a second. Make yourself available for healing, either by proximity to me or LOS. Whatever you need to do, get that healing. You don't have to press W until dead. And that's the point I'm trying to get across to some people. Then you can immediately re-engage after being topped off. Another example, thing to get away from is I see dive tanks do this a lot. Usually Winston's or Diva, and this is just in general play. I'm not singling anybody out. When I see a bad habit, I see when they get that on a nade, they immediately shift back into the fight. But what you're doing is taking away from the potential of a massive burst of healing. If you sense that nade, just wait a second or two. Let me get 2 shots into you because it's going to be a shitload of healing. So wait. Don't just take off as soon as that nade hits and be like, okay, the healer's on me. I'm good. Wait a second or two. Let me hit a couple shots. Then you can go back, even if you're not topped off. All right. Soft reset. There's a difference between a soft reset and a hard reset. Soft reset is usually called in the setting of even fights when both teams are critical in health or low in number with friendly healers en route. That is the key parameter there. A good example is King's Row. It's so often where you can be on defense, King's Row. And how many times do you feel like, oh my God, it's like a 2v3 or a 3v3? Both teams are very low health, and if that Ryan stays alive for 1 or 2 more seconds, I'm going to heal him. I'm going to hit him with a nade, and right as you peek that corner, your Reinhardt dies, and the fight's lost. If you were to execute a soft reset, you would have, in that Ryan just stopped fighting, backed up for a second. That fight has just been extended, and the chance of you maybe winning that fight just went up significantly. So just try to consider that soft reset. So what you're going to do if you're that Reinhardt or you're that DPS and you're in fight, even though you want to fight to the death, take cover to survive. The time frame is what's so important. Just think, if you hear soft reset, it means healing is almost there. Try to survive until then. 5 to 10 seconds. That means that your healers are about 5 to 10 seconds away. Grab health packs. Use abilities to stay alive above all. All right. Then moving on to the hard reset. This is usually indicated when teams are largely offset, so down 2 or more. So usually like your 4v6, your 3v5s, your 2v4s. That's where it's pretty much in favor of the team with more heroes alive. So if it's indicated when teams are largely offset without positive ult economy to balance the fight. So if you have Nanoblade and it's you and your Genji and it's a 2v4, you potentially, based on if the enemy's critical, their positions, you may be able to swing that, and that's going to be situational. But for the most part, hard reset means once that call is made, immediately fall back if you absolutely can survive. Here's another thing I think a lot of people are victim of. If you cannot get out alive 100% absolutely without a doubt in your mind, die on point. You hear that, you see that on top 500 streams. There's a reason for that. Die on point means walk to the point and die. One, because if it's a cart, the cart's going to stop moving and it's going to stall it for just those couple extra seconds. This is what the most important part is and people don't always do this. Do not damage anybody on the enemy team or heal yourself if you have self-healing abilities or others. Reason being is once the fight is absolutely lost, it's lost. So if you damage or heal them, all you're doing is giving them more ult and putting the favor on the next fight in their hand as well. So I want you guys to be thinking about this shit. Doing damage in a fight you are absolutely going to lose simply feeds them support ults, and the healing feeds support ults, and healing gives the DPS tanks more ult charge. So say you're an Ana, right? And you take a fire strike, you're at 100 HP, you throw your nade down, now you're at 175. Well, they just got what? 375 HP when it could have just been 200. Or they just got 275 ult charge and it could have just been 200. Makes sense? So you want to deny that. Again, so try to avoid engaging the enemy or poking during this hard reset period, and that's something I see a lot of people do. So, as it's still feeding them ult. Yes, it might be giving you ult, but it's still feeding them a lot of ult. The only time that this is really optimal is in the rare circumstance that whoever's poking is like 90% or higher on their next ult. So just think about that. Just want you to think about the impact on ult economy, and because at the end of the day, you're still going to lose the fight, and you're going to waste time doing the reset, and yeah. So I'll leave it at that. So consider that a hard reset may require you to fall back much further than you think, as smart teams will push all the way to spawn if they know they're trying to regroup. Higher level play, masters and above, you will see the enemy team the moment they win a fight and it's in a hard reset scenario of 2 offset of -2, they will push you until they absolutely cannot. It's a smart play, and it extends the fight, and it wastes more of your time. Alrighty. So we can stop there. I'm going to go back to Discord really quick, just to see if we can either keep going and save all questions for both of these guides till the end, or we can stop. So I'll meet you guys in Discord here real quick. I'm here whenever. Thank you. Did we want to do a discussion now, or do you guys think we should just go? The next thing is going to be tank synergies. We can save it to the end, or if you really felt that there was something you wanted to talk about or clarify, whatever you guys want.
I have 3 questions that are very minor.
Sure.
Okay, so when you're talking about staging, your first bullet point, you say to be ready to dive within 1 mobility cooldown. What do you mean by 1 mobility cooldown? Do you mean like?
Listen, Tracer. You know damn well what I mean by that. You know, goddamn well what I mean.
You mean like 1 blink? Is that it?
No.
Or do you mean like
no.
within the span of that blink?
Within the confines, within the general. So I'm trying to make a universal checklist here, so you can.
Okay.
So depending, you have to have the game knowledge and game sense.
Gotcha.
I mean, I know everybody does, to take it and apply it to your role. So I know you're smart enough.
Too literally.
Yes. So. Yes.
All right.
So.
Never mind, we're clear on that one.
So I will say that 3 blinks is the totality of one of her 2 primary abilities.
Okay.
Next.
Okay. So when you're talking about initiation, your bullet point AI, you say that during the set, if somebody is not ready, they need to say no. Can we maybe get a rundown / an example of what would be said after somebody says no, maybe, if possible? I think it would be nice to know what to expect.
So if somebody says no, I'm going to be looking for who that is. I'm going to be looking for who that is, and I expect a little feedback. So the no, what's important is if I say set, the no needs to happen quickly. We can do the communication and figure out what the reason is for that after, and then everybody else, the implied task for everybody else is to know to keep maintaining your staging. The rules of staging, not an LOS of the enemy. Try to minimize poke damage, etc., etc., etc. Yes.
To add to that. So say I'm Genji and maintain call set. Then I say no. And then I add on like no dash 3 seconds.
You can do that. And optimally, I'd like to get to a point where the key here is not muddling up the comms, saying as much as you can is in as few words as possible so that everybody understands what it is. Like it could be, you're going to have to make that assessment as to what you need to say, but short and sweet. Like, I need health. No, I need health. No, my ability.
I mean, I feel like support that should be like the support should really try to look for that shit because they're in the back, right? And they can make sure everybody's up front and ready to go.
Look for what? What do you mean?
Well, just 6 people. You got 6 people ready to go.
But specifically, what do you mean? Look for what?
Well, if you're a healer in the back, you can see everybody is lined up ready to go.
But I can't see. So I get what you're saying, but look at all the steps that are required for staging. I can't see all those steps. I'm not
saying only support should do that or should be looking out, but it's a good thing for supports to look out for.
I don't disagree. I don't disagree at all. However, this is an exchange of information. The set is a request for information regarding your abilities that I can't see, and of course I'll be healing and I'll be topping you off if you're taking poke damage, but I mean, you shouldn't be saying no because I need healing, because I'll be looking at that. You know what I mean? Like it can happen. I get your point here, but the only real reasons that I'll expect to hear more often than not are going to be because your abilities are still on cooldown. That's going to be what it is. No, I don't have dash, or no, I'm out of blinks, or no, I don't have recall. No, I don't have amp. I don't have amp yet. You know what I mean? That simple. Like real quick. The whole point of this is short and sweet, quick request for information and a quick response. That's what's important here. And to minimize the problem what we've been having with staging is we take too long. That's the whole point of all of these specifics here, is we need to get to that next step quick. It may not be perfect every time. That's going to happen. Sometimes someone's going to get picked while we're staging. I'm just kind of giving like a universal or a general understanding of how to do what we need to do. Does that make sense?
If I can,
Yeah.
Redex, the whole like set, whether or not you are or not set, is an individual thing.
Yeah, I was thinking that too. After I said something.
Okay.
But just in case, I don't know. Sometimes people forget to communicate. But I guess that's again individual.
As I was choosing a way to do this quick sending and receiving of information, I realized that incurs a lot of responsibility on each individual player. But at the end of the day, that's a good thing to start, because by making silence mean that you're good to go and making no mean you're not, that requires you to fulfill your responsibilities. And you know what I mean? If you're, say, not singling anybody out, but if you're Lucio, you know that when you're staging, the most important aspect of your role is that speed boost. So if you fail to get in position, or you get picked, or for whatever reason you accidentally use your cooldown, you're not fulfilling your responsibility. You know what I mean? So it's important for that person to focus on their role and make sure they're communicating it to their team. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I wasn't singling you out, Ren. I was just I meant it as like, it's an example. It's an example.
No,
or like, or say for whatever reason Winston's cooldown is maybe 2 seconds away. Everybody else engages, and he's like, oh shit, he's 2 seconds behind. Well, guess what? Diva gets hooked because there's no shield. You see what I'm saying? So like, it's really important that everybody's always looking at their cooldowns, and they start to get finely tuned with that. That's so that at a moment's notice, if I request for set, it's constantly forcing them to keep getting that feedback and pay attention and start to get that game sense of where your cooldowns are, how you use those in concert, not only to maintain yourself as well as your team. So I really think this will start helping people hone their skills as individual players and fulfill their role in the team, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So, Sensor, you'll be asking that set command, and you'll be getting that command and dive.
I'll just say set and then go. There's no nose.
Yeah.
Present.
Yeah. Just give it a little pause, see if there's any nose, and go.
The reason we chose that is because in dive, especially, I think that the Winston's the initiator, and he, in my opinion, I know we watched and it said the DPS should be the initiator, but first and foremost, I think the Winston needs to be there, and that shield needs to be there, and the kill zones inside that shield, and also as far as all the mobility abilities, Winston is the one that does require a little bit of a skill. So above all, you can blink into some things, you can dash, that's easy, point and click, you can shift with Diva and readjust, but Winston's the one that requires a little bit more skill. So I want to make sure my Winston is in place, he's got his cooldown, and he can initiate. It's important for him to be the initiator for that reason. So I think they're all really good points. I don't want you guys to think that I'm like poo-pooing on them or anything. Like, they're great points, and I'm just discussing why. Yeah.
My last point or question, okay, it's super specific, and I've kind of already answered it myself in my head while typing it out. But when the hard reset call has been called, if I'm Tracer, in situations where I can't get out, like they've got a McCree maybe, but I have the potential to like one bang the Zenyatta, just like all headshots. Do I still need to just die, or should I go for that?
I think it's a great question. Again, I'm gonna give you the same answer as the first one. Is You know your hero.
Gotcha.
I'm giving you general guideline here. A tracer. If you have the flank, that's a good achievement. It's not easy to get in the back line on some maps. I do not expect that. That's not a hard reset for a tracer. That's where I open it up to you guys. These are your areas of specialty. You know how these rules apply to you. If you're a Reinhardt, it applies to you. Get your ass out. But if you're a tracer or a Sombra, hard reset does not mean go back to spawn. You know that.
Okay.
You're a tracer main, man. I'm not going to tell you how to do your job. Okay. You know how to do your job, man. Like, you do. Just take these as a general rule of thumb to apply and at least appreciate that that's what your team is doing. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Great question. All right, we go with that. I think we have a scrim at 11, so I kind of want to do
quickly review the Synergies section. Hopefully, I didn't botch it.
No, it's I didn't get a chance to fine tooth comb it, but I'm sure from what I saw, it looked good. So
yeah,
this is something that
you can fill anything in with. Sorry.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say you can fill anything in with whatever you want to add verbally.
I think I'll just keep it as is. There's a lot there. It's pretty good. So, all right, I'm going to leave you guys, and I'm going to go join stream here. I just saw the comments there. Gotta be that guy. All right, I can't look at chat right now. You guys make me laugh. All right, so tank synergies. This is something that is pretty obvious to somebody who's played Overwatch at different levels. So you can usually tell. There's usually a giveaway as to how much a main tank and his respective counterpart understand how well tanks can play together. And usually the tell is proximity. The longer you see a Zarya and a Reinhardt more than 10 to 15 meters apart, it goes to show you that they don't appreciate their strengths at the most. So we're going to talk about that here, as well as Winston and Diva, how they really complement one another, and Orisa and Roadhog as well. So I feel like really defining that and kind of like talking about it can really, it'll make you go, never thought of that. So I'm hoping that we'll get a lot of that here. All right, guys, I got you. Okay, so with tank synergies, and it's good that your main healer is talking about this, because this tank synergy is really your main healer's best friend. So I really want you guys that are on tank roles to appreciate this and understand how it impacts the rest of the team, and why, if you don't do these things or you're working on these things, why it's so important to keep doing it. So with Ryan Zarya, it's beautiful. It's a beautiful relationship in regards to her bubbles. So she has her bubbles. Ryan has shield, so he can take and protect space with high damage output and sustain. That is the key that I think a lot of tanks don't think about. They're more focused on damaging and getting kills. But what I really need them to be doing is sustaining and letting the DPS do work. Because if they're affecting my healing burden and they're taking a lot of my time, I can't pocket through DPS, which that is what gets kills more efficiently and wins more fights. Winston and Diva, high movement allows low or easily killable characters to be burned quickly, which will put fights in your favor. Orisa and Hog takes advantage of halt hook combos and high damage to get enemy players out of position for a quick kill. Again, all three of those, for all of the synergies there to work well, proximity is usually required. They need to be together. If you must leave, depending on whatever comp that is, it better be for a really good reason, and in the back of your mind, getting back to your respective counterpart should be utmost in your mind. Each duo synergy, when played correctly, enables both tanks to survive longer without needing healing. That is something that a lot of people don't think about, and I want you to appreciate. This enables the main healer to pocket DPS longer before returning to use a nade or a heal ball to catch up on diminishing tank health. So let's think about that for a little bit. It's like, wow, you know what Anna's nade does. You know what Moira's ball does. But now when you think about it, it's like, okay, say we're running a Rein Zarya, right? And I have a Genji who's a pain in the ass to shoot as an Ana, and I have a Tracer, right? Pocketing them will win the fight, and pocketing means mid-fight. That's the next level shit that wins games. When that Genji is actively fighting a McCree or a soldier in their face and you're hitting them with heals, those are the ones that win fights. So if I can focus on that longer and not have to babysit my tanks because they're not working together, we can really win games and get picks quicker. But what happens is the beauty is the whole purpose of the nade is while I'm doing the DPS pocketing and I come back to my tanks, I can just throw a nade and shoot either one of them maybe 2 to 3 times a piece, and then boom, I am back on my DPS with a full clip, and I can probably buy myself another 10 seconds as long as my tank, at least 10 seconds, as long as my tanks are playing together and we're not against goats. So just think about what you do and how that impacts that. So we're going to break this down. Strengths and weaknesses. So as far as strengths with Rein and Zarya, again, they have high sustain and damage output. Zarya and Rein, if you look at their cooldowns and you combine them together, it's outstanding. I just recently learned it. Zarya's E is 8 seconds, while her shift is 10 seconds, which to me, that makes me want to initiate by bubbling my Reinhardt when he needs it to start building some shield or to start swinging to get his ult. And then I will leapfrog and step through him with my shift, get my ult charge, and then fall back behind him to use his shield. And then as soon as my E comes up again, I'll have it. It's better to do E shift E because of the way the times work on that and try to stagger them than to do shift E shift, if that makes sense. So I would recommend always initiating that leapfrog mechanic with your E. You'll get more utility out of it quicker. Just something to think of. They can protect themselves or allies. Proper use of aggression cycles. That's where I'm talking about doing the leapfrog. You go in, you get aggressive, and in each person takes turns getting their ult charge. That's where that synergy is. Their abilities allow for cooldown and or recharge of their counterparts' abilities when timed properly. So that's where I was talking about the bubbles and the shield, and a lot of communication should be going on there. Weaknesses. They're pretty slow movement. They benefit from Lucio, speed boost, as well as if you have an Ana, huge benefit from the nade. Ana can just throw a nade and then doesn't even have to worry about topping him off. She can let Lucio handle it. And then she can go back to DPS. Need high healing output. Moira or an Ana, I would agree with that. Mercy, you can't sustain it with a Mercy and an off healer. High communication is very necessary. Short range damage need to be close. Low utility when combining tank ults. It's very, 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 very low utility if you shatter a Zarya Grav. I don't recommend it unless it's in extremely special circumstances where you can win out the fight outright. Rein Zarya benefit most with high heals and proper bubble communication. Between bubble, shield, and positioning, you should be able to avoid, absorb, or heal the majority of damage as it's dealt, i.e. Zarya's shield can regenerate up to 200, so allows DPS to engage first from a safe place or provide a safe place to retreat to. So use your bubbles wisely when you're using it on anything other than Reinhardt. So maybe it's a clutch peel or you're helping out and engaging Genji, but for the most part, 80% of them you really should be designating them between Rein and yourself. Just to simplify, here's a couple do's. Stick together in close proximity. A bad charge can result in a lost fight. Typically, the bad charge to me is going to be charging forward. Think of it as duration of time in your charge. It's not necessarily that you're going forward. You are vulnerable as a Reinhardt. So if you must charge, make it a short charge in any direction. Please, please, please try not to charge forward, especially for a long charge, because you're getting shot at and you're going to die, and it's hard for me to heal you while you're moving. And your Zarya, you're leaving your Zarya, so she can't help you. Once the bubble she sends you is gone, she can't step through you with a shift. You are going to die. All right, leapfrog. So that's where I was kind of talking about the aggression cycle and stepping through your Rein and doing that cycle. So with the Rein shield to maintain a high energy charge and a rhythmic cooldown rotation. I like that. I like how you worded that, Cause. Communicate with your team when your shield is down or low. Call your bubbles. So usually just hey, Rein, I got a bubble for you in 3. I usually give like a 2 to 4 second heads up so the Rein knows like whether or not he's going to die or whatever. Don't use charge aggressively, putting yourself way out of position. If you're losing LOS, you're not close enough that your Rein can step, or your Zarya can step through you and shield you with her bubble to buy you more time. You're probably going to die. Don't go in alone with a high charge to frag out. I would agree with that to a point. I would say that at higher level of play, as long as you're disciplined, game sense wise, this actually is recommended as long as you're not in a hard reset. If you have a really high charge and you're 200 or above, it's actually Zarya's really well sustained. So I think that'd be a good point to talk about there. I've seen that be extremely successful, where she can go a little solo if she's high charge, but that'd be situational. We'll talk about that. Use bubbles off cooldown in a chaotic manner. So don't use bubbles you don't want to use both of your cooldowns at the same time. Very, very rarely. Maybe if you're in a grab situation, but I almost wouldn't. I would try to stagger it and hope to God that it's blocking some shots for you. So Rein Zarya can be a powerful combination when synergized. An out of position Rein or Zarya can hurt a team's chances during a fight. Apart, both are still very powerful, but together they are unstoppable. The key and most beneficial thing to me is that with proper bubbles and shield, they minimize the need for me to heal them, and I can focus on the DPS. That's where I need to be, guys. I'm not blaming anybody. All right, Winston Diva. I love their strengths. High movement, bubble, and DM for sustain. Can peel for the backline when pressured, and they have sustain and stalling alts. So these guys are more of an intermediate group to use together. It's a little bit difficult. It's harder for your healers to really be effective if you don't have LOS discipline. So that's their weaknesses. Ability cooldown, you can get caught out in the open. Rein Zarya is a little more forgiving, but if you are not on your shit with your abilities and working together, you are going to get one another killed. Diva, you need to be matrixing for your Winston, and Winston, you need to get that shield down in a good spot to buy enough time to get the pick. Do what you got to do. So diving takes you away from your supports. You need to have that LOS discipline depending on the map. Baby Diva affects your tempo. So there are times when it's more beneficial to just go and remac regardless of your ult, or to jump off a cliff, because you want to get to that next team fight with everybody in their mech and etc. as soon as possible. You cannot use Moira. I would agree wholeheartedly. You cannot use Moira. The dive distance, and if she shifts to where your dive is, Moira is dead. LOS discipline is a must. So dive main heals is usually going to be a Mercy and an Ana, or an Ana and a Zen and a Lucio. I don't recommend Brig either. I honestly don't recommend Brig with Ana in a 2-2-2 ever anyway, because yeah, we'll talk about that later. But goats, it works, but any other situation, absolutely not. So proper setup and execution is a must. So we talked about that before. I'm just reading through this. You guys can read that. Proper cycle of bubble and DM can prolong, sustain the dive, or enable a reset. While the Winston shield is up, make use of it to avoid damage. Communication is a must between the Diva and the Winston for cycling cooldowns. So ultimately, very simplified. The Winston should dive in, drop his bubble initially. They say dive in once the Winston's starting to take damage, then drop your bubble, because sometimes you don't really need it, and that'll buy you more times in the cooldown. But while closing the gap, don't DM at all. You really should avoid it. One thing I highly recommend is having DM discipline. So if you need to use it just by clicking it once, that's good. There are very few situations. Actually, this is coming from Emong. The only time you ever want to hold your right click from the beginning to the end is during a DPS ultimate, an enemy DPS ultimate. Any other time, he really talks about being extremely disciplined with it, using it in bursts, and trying to be very select about it, and keeping it above half as much as possible. So if you must DM based on where you're diving, do so, but I would try very hard to try to have as much of that DM as you can when you land, if not all. So Monkey should dive. The simplified version is Monkey should dive. Put the shield down, at his discretion as late as possible. If you're diving in Ana, yes, you have to shield a little early to prevent the sleep, but shield, Diva gets down, they both focus fire, she missiles on whatever they're supposed to be doing. And she's keeping an eye on her Winston's health the whole time, and then she lets that dictate her DM discipline. So yeah, you want to fan or tap your DM, and if there's a bastion or something or whatever, use your judgment. If you've got to use all your DM, use all your DM. But at the end of the day, your next step is getting the hell out. You get your picks or you don't, but you get the hell out to reset, to do a reset. Dive is about cycles, not holding W until dead. Remember that. Do dive targets called by Winston together. Use your DM to save him with no cooldowns from high burst damage. So that's typically where you really want to focus at. So is when you see high burst damage coming in. An enemy Diva's rocket fire, that's a good one. Maybe Reaper, you can tap and save him from 1 or 2 bursts, but you're not going to be able to right click at all because of the time separation from Reaper's shots. You're going to want to make sure you peel for your supports, prepare for the next cycle. Don't be afraid to reset for heals. Resetting is actually a huge part of dive. you should anticipate doing a reset. You should not. I would say 1 in 5 of your dives should result in your death before a reset. You should get at least 4 out of 5 successful where you get in, you get a pick, maybe D.Va gets demacked, maybe. But ultimately, with working together, you should be able to get back, get top back off on heals, and re-engage. Don't dive a target without your partner. A demacked D.Va or a dead Winston can be detrimental to your dive, forcing a reset. Yeah, you can't. You absolutely cannot. A demacked D.Va or a Winston, you're not doing a team dive. You're not. You're going to try for picks, and you're adjusting fire from there. Don't use all your DM at once. So we did talk about that. So weaving defensive abilities can prolong a fight and make it safer for both tanks to reset or peel if needed. Taking advantage of these synergies will also allow your supports to enable the DPS to stay in the fight longer. One thing to be cognizant of, if you're a D-Mech D.Va, weigh the decision to shoot the enemy to get your mech back versus their ult economy. You have to feel that out. Sometimes it's better to just die and get a remech, or go back and spawn and get a remech. So if the fight's really close and the ult economy is really close, you might want to consider not doing it. So something to just feel out. Orisa and Hog. These guys, in my opinion, Hog requires a significant amount of skill to land hooks consistently. In my opinion, these guys are more of an advanced comp because there's not very much damage mitigation. It requires Roadhog to be disciplined as far as minimizing how much enemy charge he's given. So that means playing corners, using Orisa's shield. Yeah, because some people get really lax. They get really lazy because they're like, oh, I'm a Roadhog. I can self-heal. It's fine. I can take all this damage. Try not to do that. You're giving all charge. Use the Orisa's shield. Stay with your Orisa. Play corners. Hide. That's Hog's biggest weakness. People think it's his strength. It's his weakness. That he's an easy target. All right, so strengths. Halt and Hook used together can be devastating when played. We haven't ever talked about this, thought about it, tried it. Hasn't happened yet, but it'd be something that'd be nice to see in situational comps where Hog or Orisa work well. It requires very strict communication between the two tanks. Can bring targets into the team for a quick kill. 2 large hitboxes to body block and meat shield for teammates. So getting back to that point, there's no solid peel for Orisa and Hog. So there are times when Hog will need to soak up those bullets while Orisa's shield's on cooldown. That's one of the reasons why he works so well together. So if she shifts, if Orisa shifts, and that's that, like, Hog needs to be nearby. I know sometimes Hog has to go left flank, right flank to get in a cheeky spot for a hook, but again, proximity to his Orisa is key. All these tanks, proximity is key. I'm gonna know if you're not respecting this synergy or considering this synergy based on how close you are to your respective counterpart and how long you stay away. It's an easy tell. Weaknesses: low mobility. They're both slow, fat pieces of shit. All right. So halt and hook must be communicated by the tanks. I love how that's a strength and it's a weakness. So it's only going to be as good as your ability to communicate with one another and landing that final shot. There's not many opportunities where this duo is viable. I would agree in the current meta. However, there is a couple maps where this can be really, really good. Sometimes if you get good enough at it, you can run it on Numbani defense. Sometimes you can run it on first point Hollywood defense. It's really good for that because you can hold high ground and goats can't touch it. So this is a situational comp, but it's strong if you know what you're doing. This duo relies on one another to get the picks. Very, very boop oriented. They're great for certain maps, the pulls, the well, sanctum, things like that. So the tank duo has potential for high damage output. Playing to their strengths can quickly turn a fight into their team's favor. So this one requires the most discipline. Okay. Synergize and communicate. Needs a lot of communication. Play together as a single unit, utilizing the halt and hook. Stick together and help support your teams. Set up shop in a way that makes it difficult for the enemy team to take advantage of your low mobility. So we've played a few Orisa Hog comps, and I think I worked with you a little bit, Sensor, and there were times when I would have you readjust your shield just for optimal placement. So that's something that I'll probably be doing as your Ana and just kind of guiding that. Just kind of remember where I suggest the placement, because you'll find that it's usually going to be a common setup and common position as to where to hold. There's reasons for it. So, and I can explain those on the fly and shit. But like I can remember playing with you recently on. We just backed that shield up just a little bit, and then boom, we held that point all day long. So worked out really well. Orisa is a stationary tank. If Hog is pushed too far up, Orisa can't support him effectively. Don't waste your shield placements. Don't vape when your supports can heal and build their alt charge if the situation allows, like if the enemy team is regrouping. That's a good opportunity to do that. But also on the same instance, for those of you that don't know, Hog gets a lot of his ultimate from the self-healing, believe it or not. So you really just have to look at your ult economy, look at your main heals, your off heals, and if both of your main and your off heals have their alt, you can vape away, do your thing. Synergy with this duo lies within their capability to hit their halt and hook combos and their ability to play together. Can be very powerful, but again, yeah, it is map dependent, and I would agree with that. And that looks like that is the end, so I will join you guys back in Discord.
Hello, hello.
Well, hello there.
So I have to say that this presentation, not only in the information it contains, well done to both of you. This is some phenomenal shit, but also in the way that you are presenting it, it's like this is some top tier shit, man.
Thank you.
Well
Thank
done.
you.
Well done.
Don't blow my head up anymore. Don't do that. I didn't do this. I have to give credit where credit's due. I helped a very little bit on this part, the tank synergies. This is mostly Cause and Dope.
Wow.
I would say 20% of this is me. 100%, probably 90% of the other one was me and Cause. I talked with him through it on that. But I got to give credit where credit's due. This is Cause work on this tank synergy.
I was a detriment with my fucking.
It's okay. You were there in spirit. We appreciated it.
Yeah.
I very much was. I was rooting you guys on so fucking hard.
Okay,
Well,
so
I tried my best to do this. I'm not a tank player, so a lot of it was a little bit of information
that's
from
the thing.
snafu from prior scrims and using what little I know to make.
little, little. Good joke.
So I timed this. I'm sorry. I just wanted to. I'm sorry to interrupt. I just want to say. So I timed this just right to give us about 10 minutes for discussion. So please feel free to do that. And Dope, take your time, man.
Yeah, I was gonna say one of the things is especially with the tank combos, there's a lot of heavy communication stuff like that, and communication has definitely been one of our poor spots, and some things that other teams have done to help them, which I was thinking that might benefit us, is that they create almost like a code word or a code language where they have a couple of words that mean something, and it's something really important. So it'd be like regroup or like I need healings, and so you designate a word that's like, all right, Texas is regroup. And so like Houston Outlaws use Texas, and so whenever they start screaming Texas, that's everyone regroup right now. Shut the fuck up. No one cares about what you're doing. Regroup. So I think maybe a couple of those could be helpful for like chaotic calm situations where one thing needs to be put through really fast, like a regroup or a reset. We could just yell over everyone else. And
Can I ask you, when did you join us? How long ago did you join us, Dope?
I joined you just like right before we did the tank one, so I missed the
okay.
first half. Yeah, I was stuck in fucking traffic, but
okay. So we've designated that we can do code words, but so far we've designated set, go, hard reset, soft reset, and yeah, we're not going to call for individual reset, but
Yeah, I mean,
code words. I like it. That's a good idea.
Yeah, like things that go,
It's a little
go,
shorter.
and stop and set can be said for so many different things. So having like a word that's out of place that will like trigger in your mind is pretty useful. So something
like bananas.
like literally like a safe word for sex, but with Overwatch.
Retreat.
cheese sticks is less.
Yeah,
Cheese
like,
sticks is less syllables. So I choose that over bananas. Just saying.
Banana.
I'm lactose intolerant actually, so
Same.
All right, we can work on it. That's really good. We can come up with some code words
but
and
yeah,
shit.
and it's also something where some teams find it detrimental, or like people screaming out something that doesn't have anything to do with Overwatch. So we'll just have to figure it out. But I think it could definitely help for the chaotic situations, because we find ourselves in those pretty often, the ball fights and staggers.
Broken arrow.
Yeah, and
All right.